important matrix to drive better team performance, creativity, critical thinking, mindfulness. And if the team feels psychological safe, they can do much more, and it really creates a culture of inclusion. We were talking about how if you are under pain, you don't think creatively or you don't think different. And similarly, if you are not psychologically safe, you don't express yourself. It's very important to express yourself, be yourself, and also in the team setting. All of us really talk about team culture, team performance, team success, but if you are not building a culture of inclusion, psychological safety, how do you ensure that you are encouraging contribution from everybody in the team? In absence of that, you don't get contribution from everybody in the team, you don't get new ideas, and there's so many other things which becomes a deterrent to overall productivity of the organization. And at the end of the day, all of us know that we are working in an organization and profit matters. Okay? Yes, please.
Hi, I just wanted to add something over there to what you said, and since we're talking about psychological safety.
One important slide that I want to touch upon. When you see on the screen, do you see anything that is out of the ordinary? Anything? Everything common?
For heterosexuals, it may seem common, but for people in the queer community, all of this is a privilege that we don't have.
Perfect. I will touch each one. And I'm copying your thing. So from family, this example was given by her, very beautiful. I'll just use the example. So there's a father and there's a son. Son goes to the father, says that, I'm gay. On one side, one situation is where the father says that, wow, jigar ka tukda, come drink. Or the second part is that, naak kaat di, cut my nose. Which is the one that will happen the most? The second one. So family is crossed, okay? Then relationship. You think that a person who has had no family acceptance has I was going to say the balls, but okay, not the right word. Okay, but has the courage to kind of go up and kind of speak to, go to a bar, go speak, have that relationship. There's no queer matrimony. Is there? There's only Bharat matrimony. Oh, there is? I should go there. No, but I'm committed. Okay. Yeah. No. There's only hookups, but okay, no marriage apps. But yeah. But having said that, relationship is crossed out. Marriage, we know, marriage equality, we're still struggling. That's crossed. Housing. I'll give an example. So there's a trans person that we hired in Pune about 1.5 years back, okay? They moved from Bangalore to Pune. According to our reallocation thing, we gave them 15 days in our guest house. Then they had to go finding apartment. Because we're in real estate, we had our channel partners, brokers, we passed them on. They got a house also. The day that they were moving in, the housing society people stopped them saying that no trans people allowed. Token has been paid. The first month of rent is to go out, but they cannot enter the house. She calls me up at like 11:30 at night, and she asked me this one question that still haunts me till date. And she says, are we human? I did not have an answer for that question, but what we realized is that housing is a big issue for a trans person because of the gender expression that they have or the social acceptance that hasn't yet come. So that's crossed out. We'll touch upon this in a little bit. Parenting, shaadi nahi ho rahi hai, adoption is a problem, so parenting is crossed. Medical care, so our medical curriculum is not trans affirmative, it's not LGBTQ affirmative, and becomes a big problem. There were certain cases that happened during COVID where trans folks were not given a jab because they were trans. Some cases, not saying that it was in general, but this happens. Travel, not referring to Zindagi Mein Lage Na Dobara travel. I'm referring to travel that is local. So what happens when you do not, a lot of women here will also echo the thing about how travel can be really unsafe. Now put a trans person. The sad bit about a trans person is that, especially a trans woman, they are seen as so sexually available, always. It's such a problem because then traveling or just minding my own business becomes a big problem. From rickshawalas to buses to this, I have grown up in my career so I can afford an Uber. But it was a huge problem getting it from the Bangalore airport. But anyway, inheritance, family nahi hai, so jaidat, property not available, correct? All of it is crossed. So for the allies here, you all have a lot of privilege. Use it. I'm not saying that give your property to the queer folks, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that understand and empathize that they might be working on the same deck that you might be, but they might be going through certain more issues at the space. So what is an ally? An ally is a person who supports, promotes LGBTQ policies and inclusion at their workspace, at other spaces. There's a booklet that I would want to pass on to you all, just the folks if you all can. This is a booklet that we created. We call it the blueprint of a workplace ally. Because real estate, so very cliched, it's called a blueprint, but it will take you through each space in the workspace where allyship can be made into an actionable point and not into just some random thought process ki dost bano. Okay? That's not what allyship is. It has to be meaningful, it has to be actionable. You can go through this document, you can use it, you can even reproduce it at your workplace, you can use it as a content piece. The whole logic is to kind of make allyship actionable, otherwise it will stay a varied concept. 3 things that I would like to simplify to become an ally. You need to educate yourself. All the allies here who have come here, congrats. A big kudos and claps to the allies, please. Second, you need to be visible. You cannot be that friend who says that, ye mera friend hai, my friend, but I don't know that person. You really have to be visible. You have to be out of the closet more than the queer folks, okay? And lastly, you need to speak up. When you hear those derogatory jokes, those microaggressions, if you don't speak up, again, as Patruni said, that it's the responsibility of the trans person or the queer person to kind of make that statement. It shouldn't be. If we are saying that you're an ally, you should really speak up. 3 things, if you do this, good to be an ally. Any questions? Cool, I'll just play this video. Oops. Can you play the video? No. It's not playing? Okay, it's okay. I was just basically going to talk about a taken name and given name and legal name, okay? Taken name, legal name, given name, whatever. The difference between a legal name when a trans person is, it becomes a dead name. That is something that I have changed, I don't want to go back to. It is a past that I have really lived, which I really don't want to revisit. And hence, when I look at my dead name, it is really a dead name. You know, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So when you kind of use their name behind their back, if you know it for some random reason, and you kind of do that, if you use the dead name behind their back, someone's dead name most likely, or you don't correct others when the dead name, what are you? Guess what are you? You're not an ally. You're not an ally. Because you're here in this room, but you're still not correcting them. You're still using the thing because you're aware. Don't do that. I know it's a difficult thing. Maybe the person who you have worked with and they are coming out, it will be difficult to get used to it because there's some name, some pronouns that you might be using, and that's okay. But deliberately doing it can become a problem. This is a passport. On the passport, you will never have first name, last name. It is always written as given name. Because when you are born, the name is given to you. That's why a given name. It's not the name that I was born with or the name that I have. It was given to me. So I have the option to kind of take another name or choose the other name. If we understand
the drain. Whenever people have this fear of failure, they don't try new things. So also do that and many other things. One of the things that we really focus at Macquarie is leadership shadow. Like I mentioned to all of you around leadership standards, we have a very well-defined expectations from everybody in the organization, and there is also something which is slightly different from all the leaders at Macquarie. And this is something very simple. What is leadership shadow? You know, whatever you have to say what you do. And a lot of time we say different things, but we do different things. We forget that we are being watched. And we had some example of sexual preference, vis-a-vis orientation. Are you also from the same community? So all these things are very important, and it's important that it is aligned. Okay, what you are saying, what you are doing, how you are conducting yourself, how you are rewarding people, how you are encouraging people to speak up, and how you are also contributing in the journey around building a culture of inclusion. It cannot happen that you are pushing your people to attend all the sessions and you are attending none of the trainings. And all of us today in our workplace, we have so many celebrations, like June month passed by. I'm sure everybody in the room had at least one celebration related to Pride. Okay, just showing up is also very important. And it's also very important because it's not only getting talent, but it's also about how are you retaining. Some of the examples we saw, 14 years in Deloitte, 14 years in Dell, and what are the reasons why people are sticking around? Because there are enough psychological safety, there is platform to be creative, there's platform for them to do the things that they are passionate about. So it's very important to do that. And one of the things which I feel a lot of time we miss on is the development and performance management process. It's important that we have these diversity measures there. You know, different people have different needs. So to customize your performance management, your learning modules is also very important. It's not only just getting people, you have to help them be successful in their full journey at your workplace. So always do that. And also encourage your managers. A lot of it is manager experience, you know, and we are all now seasoned professionals to know that. How you experience the organization is how the managers are. So really build that capability and ensure that they understand what is all about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being an inclusive leader, building a culture which is psychologically safe for people to contribute, demonstrating allyship. Anything that you want to share? We are almost at the end of the session. Yes, please.
Yasmin Jalil. Okay, I'm Yasmin Jalil from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. I'm the DEI program manager for India for...
Feel you're from the community. And that's when I realized how difficult it is. You know, you're not fighting for the community, you're fighting for yourself. To tell the people that you're not from the community, but you want to support the community.
You know what is my answer when people ask me that? How does it matter? Simple. Yes.
Who are trying to be inclusive, sometimes allies, sometimes cisgendered, LGBT people as well, LGBT people, when they are trying to be inclusive as well, they have a certain expectation of how a trans person should look. And I think we touched upon that a little bit, that your voice doesn't go with you being trans. Or sometimes when I say that I am trans, I come out to a new person, they are like, oh, but you don't wear your hair a certain way, you don't have makeup a certain way. And they give me tips how I could look more passable as trans. Yeah. And I just want to say that I know the intention is good, they're trying to be ally, but this kind of adds to the dysphoria of that person. And I think we can accept that Trans people don't come in one size. Like, there are multiple ways to be trans, and
True.
I think we need to
As
be.
I said, all four you can be. I knew the room would go in another direction. But I would want to specify, look at euphoria, always. Because we're always looking at the negative side of it. Start doing something that will make your colleague or peer euphoric rather than dysphoric, right? We'll start, you'll be like, oh, posh case will happen. You know, the first thing our mind goes to is the negative side. Start looking at the positive side. But yes, I know I didn't touch upon the topic, maybe on coffee or at lunch for sure. Okay? Thank you. I will end it.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'll note about you, but I'm super full, and that's so yummy. Yeah. My name's Curtis. I'm the head of Inclusion, Diversity, Equity for Dow Asia Pacific, based in Shanghai.
Hi, everyone. My name is Weena, pronouns he, him, based in Manila, Philippines. My day job is I'm a vice president for a corporate investment bank. And my gay job is I'm one of the global co-chairs for our Gender Expansive Council, which focuses on trans, non-binary, gender expansive under the Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs.
My name is Mona Malakuti, and I'm the APAC lead for D&I at Warner Brothers Discovery. I'm based in Sydney, Australia, as you might be able to tell from my Australian accent. But I, myself, ethnicity-wise, I'm Iranian, and so in the Asia region, feel very connected to Asia.
Prachi Rastogi, I do D&I for IBM APAC and Japan.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to dive right into it because I know we have a lot of questions. I'm hoping the audience also has them. So let's begin with each of you sharing what are some of those unique strengths that you bring to your organization as regional DEIB leaders. And if you can draw some parallels with your everyday work on how these strengths have helped you in your DEIB initiatives. Chris, let's start with you.
I'll start and I'll share. I used to work for the human resources team, and I was the lead for ANZ and the small company business units that we had across Southeast Asia. I think one of the strengths is that this role was a new role for me, and it was an opportunity for us to have someone in the region who understands the region, who has worked across the region, and bring a different lens to it. So I think one of the opportunities I used was the relationships that I had with our leadership team, the relationships I had with our people and culture team. I leverage on them as one of my key stakeholders to help us deliver things locally. And yeah, that's it from me.
Pretty similar. I was an HR business partner in IBM in various businesses before doing D&I, and that really helped because I was speaking the language of the business leaders. They knew that she's not in the corner working, giving us, you know, those lessons for being inclusive, but actually she knows what are the challenges of business and what are they facing on a day-to-day basis, what is the reality on ground, and that really helped. And at IBM, there is no pressure of adopting the global programs as is in any of the markets. So in APAC and Japan, we have a whole lot of freedom about implementing, executing those programs in the manner that fits us best. And you just need to have a lot of confidence in knowing your own market, and your connections with your business leaders have to be really good, and your business leaders' skin have to be in the game. So you can't just running around doing D&I all alone. You need to make sure that business leaders know that it's as much a business imperative as it's a human imperative.
I'm in a very unique position because my esteemed peers here are all full-time DEI, and I am not. And I guess that's what keeps me unique, because I live and breathe the representation of doing a day job and a DEI job. And it gets smaller when you're in that type of representation. 17 countries, how unique could that get? I mean, it's getting smaller and smaller. But I think the way we cultivated global practices to not just the region, but to our country is because I speak the local language, just the same as what Rush mentioned earlier. And thank you for giving that unique context, because like everything that's being done in the global landscape, like say for instance, if you implemented something in the US and it took you 2 steps, it's gonna be 20 steps here. And me being in the region, knowing the language, knowing the culture and everything, I could translate it to the way it's going to be more effective, it's going to be more humanized versus just implementing a simple program. At the same time, because I'm doing a day job, people wouldn't see me as, oh, that's just your passion job, you want to do it, or you're paid to do that. They don't see me as that. So I guess that's the balance that I bring in.
I think for myself, obviously not being from this region, I'm the import, but I'm local hire. Everyone assumes I'm an expat. No, I'm a local hire. My partner's Chinese. I've been in China for 11 years, and I chose to live in Asia. And I make that very clear. And I'm a very curious person. And so, especially if you want to go to dinner, I'll try almost anything. You know, because if you don't, how are you going to explore, you know? And I think that's such an important cultures. It's curious about the food. So I bring that curiosity to the work, like, tell me more. And I think hopefully people can genuinely see that I'm genuinely curious and not asking to be like nosy or to be that American guy that has no clue about this region. I do speak Chinese, as well as Spanish. But Spanish doesn't work in China.
You don't say.
Yeah, but I'm also not afraid to put myself out there. And I will say I'm very fortunate to have an amazing boss. I report to our Chief Inclusion Officer, and here's our strategy, here's our 7 pillars, here's what we focus on. And she says, I hired you to do the job, do it. That's my directions. And sometimes I say, no, this doesn't work here. We're not gonna do that. So, for example, we're rolling out self-ID. We rolled out self-ID last year in the US. I said, not gonna do it in Asia Pacific. 14 countries in market, 7 major languages. We have trust to build. We have data privacy. We have this, this, and this. And how do you define ethnicity in Asia Pacific? And she said, good job, 2025. You know, so it's also, I think, having the psychological safety to be able to say no, not yet, or how about this? And so I feel very empowered. And so as a region, and that trickles down to our ERGs. Hey, you're in Japan, you tell me. You know, you're in Indonesia, you tell me, you know, that, and giving that empowerment in that way. So I think that curiosity helps us to link it all in that way.
Absolutely, thank you so much. I think one of the things that kind of binds everyone here is getting your leaders on your side, you know, getting them to speak your languages. I mean, like you mentioned, you have an excellent boss who trusts what you have to say because you speak the language, literally and figuratively. You understand what the cultures are asking for, and hence you're able to drive, and that's the strength that each of you bring to your roles as DEIB leaders. What I want to also talk about are what are those strategic approaches that you have used to advance DEIB in your organization? And Veena, if we can start with you first.
Making sure that you're always connected, not just with your internal peers, but with the market.
It's not diverse as an industry, or it's not diverse as the space has been, and hence it's human tendency. Whenever you see someone different from you, you do 2 things. You do fear or there is judgment. Okay, and that is a fact of life. Empathy and compassion are traits that need to be created or need to be really evolved. And hence, that as an organization, we need to part onto these folks in whichever spaces that has been. And hence, sensitization has really worked for us, where we are making people sit down, and along with sensitization, representation. So I cannot just give people gyan and be like, you know, you need to know what is LGBTQ, what is gender, and not have people for them to interact with. For me, representation has been the most strongest form of sensitization, at least in a workspace, in our factory settings. I think from leaders with certain L2 level and above, I actually have lesser people in my HO. The reason that is so is because I have not been able to go higher in the leadership as a thing. And hence I have more people in entry level and more at site. But that's a thing that we'll be able to take from a time consuming. The last place I'll touch upon is the factories piece. So and there I think you have to look at greenfield versus non-greenfield. When you're setting up something and you're going into creating a diverse representation at a factory setup, it's much more possible. When you're doing a retrofit, then you have got unions, you've got people to play around with. It kind of becomes complex, but I will touch upon that at a later stage.
Yeah, no, I think so many great insights there. And what I've also found in my time living and working in China is a lot of times people, like you said, to reach the top leadership level, it might be hard to influence them sometimes. But if you're a younger or more entry-level LGBTQ person, you're probably more likely to be willing to take a risk, to be out, because you don't have 20 years of experience that could be risked in your career. You're starting out, and if you're starting out, maybe you're more likely to be a bit more courageous at the beginning. So that's one thing that I've noticed, and also education can go both ways. So if you're highly educated, but you're educated that this community, maybe it's something wrong with it, that you come in with preconceptions, versus sometimes if you don't have education, you might be ignorant, you might not understand the community, but you're not opposed. And you could be very quick to learn and then say, oh, okay, then I'm fine with that. And so I think it really depends on what type of education people have received and what information they've been acculturated to when it comes to this community. Let me pass it over here. What do you think about what are the unique challenges, or what's different about a non-office, a workplace setting when it comes to diversity efforts?
So how many of us in this room actually work in a factory or a shop floor or a warehouse? Well, you can see the number of hands, only 5. So that is the difference of diversity on a shop floor. We all are here and we're talking about DEIB initiatives in office spaces. And I'm happy that we're talking about a non-office workspace. But look at the audience, we actually don't have those people here. That is the fundamental difference. Because people who are working on the shop floor, they come from different backgrounds, be it education. Most of the people are born in a patriarchal setup and are told not to be different, but follow the herd. You need to be part of a group to be accepted. Interestingly, and I was talking to my fellow panelists a while ago, I was just Googling diversity in Indian shop floors. Guess what was the result? It only spoke about women. It only spoke about women participation on the shop floor. So where is the participation from professionals with disabilities? Where is the participation from LGBTQIA+ community? Where is it? I was talking to a few people last week. I wanted to get some numbers to discuss about what is the percentage of PWD participation on shop floors. I could not get anything. I could not even get a figure on queer community participation. That fundamentally people are so different, the challenges are obviously very unique. One of the challenge that we faced and we tried to touch upon it was no one wants to be put under a spotlight. No one wants to tell the world that they are different or that people see them differently. They all just want to merge with the crowd. So we took that challenge, and what we did was we started hiring people in groups. So, ease of work is there, familiarity is there, safe space is there. So people, and hence we could normalize it. I think Zoya touched upon it as well, that it's easier to hire people in the front line, in the site, on-site services. It is. It really is. You just need to show them that, look, you're not alone. There is somebody who is willing to listen to you and who will, tomorrow if there's a problem, will help you out. So, yeah.
Yeah, and
I hope I answered your question.
Yes. And I think something that came up briefly earlier is classism, is these differences that companies might feel, well, maybe we don't need to put as much focus on people in the factory. We're just focused on the key talent in the headquarters, right? So this is where I think we all need to retort, to push back against that type of thinking. So on that topic, let's start again with Anakshi. How can organizations tailor their DEIB initiatives to be more inclusive of people that come from diverse cultural and linguistic backgrounds? Because, like you said, if you're at a construction site or a factory, there could be people from the whole province, other parts of the country, and difficult to manage itself, not to mention then celebrating or uplifting diversity in those settings?
I think what we've learned so far in our journey, and hand on heart, it's a very nascent stage in the journey that we are at, but so far what we've learned is the balance between consistencies and customization. What I mean by that is there are certain things core to our organization that we want to ensure flow through to every part of our organization, no matter where it's located, in exactly the same terms. What do I mean by that? Gender inclusive washrooms and other infrastructure markers, policies, programs should not differ for one location versus the other. But then comes the role of also ensuring that the sensitization efforts are consistent, right? So what we've done is, you spoke of hiring in batches. While we may not always hire in batches, we ensure that we do onboarding programs for our new hires every 2-3 months, whoever is joining the last couple of months, in a group. And we ensure that everyone who joins us, no matter where they've joined us across the country, goes through that common onboarding program, which includes a sensitization workshop as well, calling out that there is zero tolerance to discrimination in the company. So you set the tone right when someone has just joined the company and they know that this is a non-negotiable. Same for managers. Every time a person becomes a manager.
For them, because that's a big part of this, isn't it? Feeling safe enough to have the conversation, to come out and all of that.
I think it's certainly telling them anything. So I just want to kind of go back a little bit so you get the backstory. So I grew up in India, always tried to be the good girl and all that good stuff, right? I got married arranged, and many people were surprised with that, but that's a different story. But and nothing wrong. I think I was happy and everything was fine, and I think I always knew I was gay, but I just, again, was one of those things that I didn't think was an option, ever. Till I reached 40 and I was like, okay, I can't live this lie anymore, and it's not making me happy. I'm not a happy parent. It's affecting my children because it affects my parenting. It affects my relationship with my ex. So, I went through my own crisis, and I came out in 2016, went through the divorce process, which is hard for the kids. But I also wanted to, by example, teach my kids that sometimes doing the right thing may be hard, but don't do the easy thing just because it's easy. Sometimes doing the right thing is the right thing to do, even if it's painful in the moment, but when you look back, you'll realize that, glad you did that, right? No regrets. So 2 years later, my then son was dropping him to his dad's house, and my son's grandmother, my ex-husband's mom, passed away before he was born, and she had always said, regardless if it's a girl or a boy, I'm going to call the baby Arya. And the reason why that is because my son's sitting in the back and says, Mom, I want you to call me Arya. And again, little backstory, a year before that, he had said, I'm depressed. And in my head, it was because of me coming out, because I told the kids first about the divorce, but then once we had done that, we got through the process, separation and all that, which is very painful. I did tell the kids that it's not because of them. We absolutely love them. We still love them. It's not their fault. Our parents are divorcing. It's because, we just don't love each other that way, right? So anyway, he's sitting there in the back and says, I want you to call me Arya. And I'm not even connecting the dots. I'm like, but that's a girl's name. But your grandmother will be happy in heaven. So sure. And then, Mom, but I'm a girl. And then it struck me, and I was like, okay, honey, absolutely, I still love you, and let's talk about this. So first call I made was, one of my best friends is a trans woman. And at the time, I was working in ERG, and I was working in the Pride group, so I was lucky in the sense of I had support, but I called her and saying, Brianna, I need help. I want to do right by my child, so I went to my peers. Yeah. Yes. And I said, help me do the right thing for my child. And it took a while, and I think her dad still has trouble accepting that the firstborn son, I was joking, but it's truly true, you can take the Indian out of India, but not the India out of the Indian. You can take the Desi out of the Des, yes, but not the Des out of the Desi. So, he has his own reasons, and I think his own growth that he needs to do, but he still struggles with his first son not being a son anymore. Like, all that stuff that we have collective, cultural, what is the word we said? Conditioning. Not baggage, but conditioning. So, and once she did come out, I think one of the things her therapist said, who she was going to at the time because of depression, was tell your mom will be accepting. And that's when she told me. And I was like, perfectly fine. So my house became the safe space. And we went and shopped for girl clothes, and I have the sweetest picture of her, wearing something feminine. And it still took some time for her to get out of the depression and all that. So it's this is a reality, and I'm sorry if it's a trigger warning for anybody, but she did attempt suicide even after I was accepting. Because, that age is just, by itself, teenage hormones, like you're going through stuff that you don't understand, and even if you have accepting and loving parents. So for me, it was just making sure that I just completely, like other parents here, complete unconditional love, honey. Like, it doesn't matter, I just want you to be happy, I just want you to be safe. And as a trans daughter, I do worry about her safety, but if I don't put it on her, at least not explicitly unless she's out late or whatever. But I think part of creating safety for them is, it's just really letting them know you are going to be there regardless. Yeah. Come what may, they have you to back them up. They fall, they falter, they question, whatever it is, you become the safe space, not even the home. So now my daughter will come and tell me pretty much everything. Maybe not in the moment, but she's dating somebody, she'll come and tell me later on or whatever. Unfortunately, she doesn't tell her dad yet, but I'm telling him like it's his loss if he doesn't do that, right? But she knows he loves her in his own way. He's very supportive, and all the financials and the college education fund and all that. He's a really good dad. It's just that he's struggling, and so she struggles with. But now I think it's been 4 years, 5 years. They figured it out. Like, she goes to me as safe space. My house is safe space. She can do what she wants, wear what she wants. And I think that's really what it is, comes down to. It's like the when you talk about unconditional love, I think our children teach us that actually for real. It's not just a word anymore. It's like, really, can you unconditionally love your child for just who they are? And, come on, they're part of us. We gave birth to them. So it just behooves us to just let them be who they are. And I see her thriving now, right? I see her maturing. She's confident in who she is. Yes, it took a little while, but I think there's that nurturing. It's almost like a little seedling. It's like reparenting again, right? You have to reparent a child again. Like, you have to go back to being, as when they were babies, like, we didn't question when they cried. Like, we didn't say, stop crying. It's like that. It's like going back to that phase of like, I love you regardless. It's okay to throw a tantrum. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to do what you're going through. But I'm here for you. And I think that creates that safe space that, and I think, unfortunately, I know you'll share probably your stories. Not a lot of kids have that. And I think I would love to see the world where everybody just loves their kid for who they are.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. But yeah, well, thank you for that. And I think I love the fact that, you reached out to your trans woman colleague. There was a line of help for your daughter with the counseling. More and more we say, to raise a family, it takes a village. We need the village, and we'll come to allyship in the workplace and all of that, because otherwise it can be very, very lonely.
Something else which I completely forgot. Sure. Okay, so 2019 is when my daughter came out, in August kind of a thing. 2019 was the first Out and Equal Summit I went to. As an out person at work, I was not out before at a different workplace. So this workplace, I was out, so I was going there as an out person for the first time in a community where I was like, it was scary. Let's just be honest, right? And then I walk into Out and Equal Summit, which is like 4,000 strong people, just community and allyship, and I was like, oh my God, I've come home. Like, these are my people. Yeah. And it was even more monumental for me because she'd just come out as trans, and the whole thing in 2019, we were talking about trans rights and stuff. So that's when I decided at some point I would love to work for this organization. And there is a way the universe delivers. Yeah. So there was community, right? I think that Out and Equal, I think the resources we have, not just the partnership, like you all within your networks, there's tremendous amount of power in the collective that we have.
From a DEI landscape, be more impactful without shaking the ground with either the government or the local community landscape. I think, like I mentioned earlier, what we do is we come collectively as a community. In the Philippines, we have Philippine Financial Inter-Industry Pride. That's the LGBT organization that all businesses come together to share best practice, partner with NGO, create summits and forums like this to talk about how we could still strengthen the agenda, talent strategy, recruitment, and even LGBTQ plus businesses. There are also other women organizations who are actually they're more active in all diversity groups that also come together as businesses to talk about this and partner with NGOs. Similar with disability, etc. And I say that only in one answer because that has proven to be more powerful. I mean, similar to this venue right now, and even out in UCAL. Convening everybody together makes it more easy because then when you share best practice on what you do, it sets precedence to everything, that it's doable. Second is you look at your communities that are less fortunate and then empowering them. As businesses, the reality is we are privileged, right? That sometimes NGOs doesn't want to work with us because they think it's easy for you to do that because you have money. But for nonprofits that do not have it, how could we do? What could we do? But there's just so many things to address. So being in a vulnerable state where you approach NGOs with empathy and genuine act of support as businesses, I think that's one of the things that will help you empower a lot of things with the community that you serve, may it be LGBT, disability, women, etc., especially from a financial health aspect. Businesses have the privilege to ensure that they impart their expertise, no matter what industry you are, and partnering with NGOs to reach to the communities would be very impactful.
Hi. Oh. Sorry, hi. This is Rupa here. I run the Pride BRG for JP Morgan India, and I don't expect Veena to answer this. This is this is mainly for the panelists who mentioned that they do have a plan, or rather they do have a policy where they incentivize people who are probably involved or engaged within the DEI space. I just want to know what is number one, the measure, and second, if there is any way for us to really authenticate in terms of the engagement, because sometimes it becomes like, for a lot of people, it's like check in the box than truly driving the agenda which can be measurable. So is that something that you could quote as an example, please? Thank you.
So we did kind of touch upon that just now, but if Curtis has anything you want to add to it?
There's always going to be box tickers. Honestly, that's the world that we live in. I mean, for us, measuring our ERG participation, for example, it's because they went on dial.erg.com, they clicked the box. That doesn't mean they show up. It doesn't mean they're an ally. It doesn't mean they're active. But there has to be some part of that trust in that way. But majority, I would say, out of those are active in that way. We're trying to figure out what's the next step, how to measure engagement, and part of that is measuring ERG movement with our leadership in that way. But to be honest, you're going to always have those naysayers. I mean, I think that's the fun part in some ways, is converting them. It's connecting it back to a personal why. It's giving them a story that maybe they have a son, a daughter, a neighbor, a cousin who is LGBTQ. Would they hire them in their job right now? What if they were hired and then they quit because they didn't feel like they belonged, because they weren't covered, because their family wasn't covered? So when we connect it to that personal why, I think it's kind of flipping back, but when it connects to that personal why, then that's when you see the engagement. Or even around disabilities, like, for example, like I broke my ankle 2 years ago. I was all about, hiring people with disability employment, all that stuff, but then I had a personal experience, and I knew what it was like to get into the workplace differently, hobbling, That was a personal experience that I won't forget, and that helped me to see things differently. And I think that's part of the going between the check in the box to the engagement that's sometimes really hard to measure. But it's also, are we inviting them to be more engaged in that way? So I don't know if you have.
I would just say that there's a difference between incentivizing business leaders for showing up for these events or just speaking up in external events. What we do is their actual variable bonus gets totally deducted if their numbers are not good. And there's a lot of difference between the two. You don't get marks or incentives or extra bonus for showing up as an ally. Your bonus gets deducted completely if your numbers are not in order, which means that you don't have enough gender balance in your leadership roles, which means that scores, inclusion scores of of the managers in your extended team are not good, which means clearly the culture of your company, your unit, your team, your department is not good. So there's a lot of difference between the two. You're not incentivizing leaders because they're showing up to these events or showing up as an ally. You are actually, they're getting hit because their numbers are not being met. And there's a clear difference. I hope that's clear.
When there is an actual culture shift and when you actually go out there and create that inclusive environment. Otherwise, you don't have those numbers to show then. Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, Pachi. Okay, we will move. Okay, sure. Yes, you've been waiting.
Majority of people here are from DIB backgrounds. I think you are the one in the panel who is doing two things. So personally, I'm connecting to you, and I want to answer. I want to ask the question: how do you navigate this along with your day job, and how an organization can help people who are doing this voluntarily or out of their interest, how the organization can help us, and what is the, because we're talking about business leaders being incentivized or being part of the KPI, how Prachi mentioned, but what about the people who are not doing it full time and they have a job, but they are still very passionate about it? So how do we navigate this? So a loaded question might be, but that's something which we have been discussing. Yeah.
And that's true. I think many of us, I have to answer this very well because my DI boss is so, but that's the reality. And all of us started that way. 8 years, 10 years back, there was no full-time DI anywhere. So it was a struggle, definitely, I'd say that. But I tell you a story. When I was when I was aspiring to be a VP in my organization, I moved to a role that was an individual contributor. But I was a Pride co-chair then of our chapter in the Philippines. So I said, oh my God, I think this is a wrong move. That I moved to an individual contributor from being a people manager. And then I was aspiring. And obviously, if you move to that senior level, one of the criteria would be your effectiveness as a manager, right? I was privileged that during that time, my management team then made sure that I got credit on teamwork and leadership on the Pride role that I was doing because I was an individual contributor. So I guess it's more in the lens of the strong allyship of your executives, understanding your circumstance. And I'm not saying it from a negative circumstance aspect, but because I came to an organization and I don't know of Pride before I came in. When I came into my organization, my dilemma was I was representing two minorities. I was an undergrad, college undergrad. Second was I was LGBT, and I have no idea about DEI before. So my fear was like, are they gonna accept me for who I am? And they did. They accepted me for what I could bring. So I made it as my personal passion to make sure that people like me will see a different lens of the current organization that I have now and make it work, no matter how difficult. Because to be honest, your day job will always take precedence. And my DEI job always tells me that your day job takes precedence, etc. But as I mature in my role, one of the things that you also need to make sure that you mature is how you balance your time. Second is empowering your successors. Yes, I think I've been like the Pride co-chair for years because there was just no successor, right? But you should take it upon yourself that if you want to do more or progress more to what you do, you have to find those passionate successors. And that was very difficult. But you get support from during that time, obviously I got support from executives saying, do you have passionate people who also wants to do the job? And then I will help them navigate day job and day job, right? So yes, I know it's difficult. I think the last thing also is it's very important that what you do on your DEI job is part of your goals. year on year. It's part of how you're measured from a performance basis. Yes, we do this for free. Yes, we do extra time. Yes, sometimes it takes our family time away from us. But your organization should also know how to credit you fairly in the work that you do, because doing the right thing has no cost and is priceless, but the impact is huge. So I challenge all organizations that you support, continue to support individuals, leaders who are really passionate about doing this, because it just does not help them professionally, but it helps them collectively achieve the business goals from a DEI agenda. I hope I answered you.
I'll share an example of that. Last month, Pride Month, we launched, amongst many other initiatives, we launched a video on trans inclusion. Everyone was consulted, like the BRG leaders, who are the LGBTQ plus BRG co-leads, who actually wrote the script, along with the vendor partner who did this, and with a lot of pride, we launched the video not only internally but externally as well. And some 5,000 views came just within an hour of launching that video. There was a lot of praise across Asia Pacific. However, we made in hindsight, a mistake, which was that we didn't consult the trans inclusion BRG co-leads globally. We thought that we're doing it very locally in APAC, so, we don't really have to. We also thought that we know trans inclusion because there are transgender people in the organization, in the region. However, there were a couple of big slips that, no need to really share those slips, but I'm just telling you that because they raised a concern that this is not okay to show what's happening with, whatever they had concerns with, the video was taken off within minutes. And it has not been reinstated, there's no plan. But what I'm telling you is that internally we may be debating this. The D&I team is saying that, it was all right to show this, whereas the trans inclusion team is saying it's not all right to show this. But the thing is, there's so much respect for the BRG leaders that we've taken off the video immediately. And unless that trust and that respect is given to people who are doing their day job.
Book said, one day men will go to the moon, because they hadn't updated the textbook in 30 years. So, just like that, if people don't have education, then it's going to be a much greater struggle. So it's, just the basics sometimes is what we need to be offering to younger people. Zoya, maybe, do you have any partners that you work with at Godrej that you think are worth highlighting, that are playing a valuable role in partnership with your company?
I think Pride Circle has been a great partner.
Of course.
For sure. So we have partnered, I remember the first sensitization sessions that we did 2 years ago, Ram complained a lot for me taking him to Noida, some faraway site. But we went sitting down, making people sit. We spoke about sex, gender, and gender identity, and having that open conversation. And there were many places where people did speak out their mind. So I remember, it's so ironical, Ram was at a site and, one guy stands up and he's like, Ramji, because Ram is such a great name. And he's like, Ramji, it trans to samajh mein aata hai, but gay to unnatural hai, right? And the best part is that this conversation was open to have, because then others were also correcting. It's about that open conversation that you need to have, but Pride Circle has been a great partner on this. I'd like to plug in my previous session, I did give out some handouts. It's there on the last seat. There's a brown box while leaving. You can just pick it up. There's a blueprint of a workplace ally. This is a booklet that we worked along with Gacy, which is a queer collective. We do quite a lot of work with them, where we have created a Instagram page and a LinkedIn page called Queering Workspaces, where we showcase role models from the queer community who are not doing D&I and HR. And I'll tell you the reason that I did this is because whenever we were hiring, a lot of folks want to do D&I and HR. And the logic for this is because they see a lot of role models like, say, a Parmesh or a Harish or a Zainab. But what about the people who are in sales, where the money is actually there? Trust me. Support functions don't have that much money as much as the incentive in sales will ever be there.
Right.
And hence, we wanted to create these role models. So I think Gacy has been a great partner with us. You can check out the book. It actually takes you through multiple spaces in a workspace that what you can do in allyship. And I think other NGOs that we have worked with has been Periphery and Tweet Foundation in these spaces. But I think it's always a collaborative effort when companies come together. That's why we formed the DEI lab, where we said that, what we're doing in Godrej is one thing, how do we take it out to India INC? We give out whatever we have done, and then maybe we learn from you all will also learn from us, and then we kind of take it in that sense. But
yeah, and I think this is in a basic way the idea of corporate citizenship, that this is the responsibility of business to begin with. So this is not some like siloed conversation. And like you said, sometimes LGBT people might be, they want to go into HR or DIB because, that's a lot of people there from our community. Or in the US, they'll say, advertising, there's a lot of gay people, they're all PR, they're all advertising. Well, that sort of is not good for everyone else, because everyone who's not doing that, they don't see themselves in those roles. And then that needs to be, role models need to be cultivated in those areas. Okay, last question before we wrap up and go to another tea break is what are some practical tips, advice, best practices for implementing these initiatives in non-office settings? We need like some, 1, 2, 3. What are some steps or tips for everybody here?
Let's do 1, 2, 3. I think the first thing is a growth mindset. We will not always have all the answers, and that's okay. But as long as we are very vocal with our intent and commitment to finding those answers, like you said, right? Even if there wasn't a gender-neutral washroom, the commitment of the company to find that and figure out how to get that in place is what is needed, so that you know that you're walking the talk and not just talking the talk. The second one is something that is something that's worked for us is reverse mentoring. I think we also briefly touched upon that. Specifically the leadership, we've ensured that all of them had a reverse mentor with someone who's out within the company, so that it's not just theoretical but very practical understanding of the challenges at workplace, and that has led to a lot of ideas coming through on what more we could do. And the third thing would be to celebrate the success of, specifically in the factory setting, the kind of impact that our employees can create even outside the workplace. A very simple example, one of our employees got sensitized at PNG about what a transgender person is, what their challenges are, all of that, and they went to a mall to shop, and in one of the stores they found a salesperson who was a trans person, and instead of hesitating, they actually struck up a conversation, and the salesperson there actually said that this is the first time in months of being in that role that anyone has come and had a conversation with them, right? So we also want to celebrate and tell more of these stories, because yes, it's within the workplace, but the same people go out and create that multiplier effect in the community, and that's always welcome.
Yes.
I think there are many things you have to do, not just 3 things. You have to do many things before you hire people, many things after you hire people. But because you're saying 1, 2, 3.
No. You can do as many as you want.
No. But I'll keep it crisp. I think leadership buy-in. If it has to be top down. You cannot tell that it's, a trans person has to do it or a queer person has to do it from down up. It has to be top down. You can put goals, you can put stuff that's the operationalization of it. But leadership, so just because you mentioned goals earlier, so we have kept something called as people and planet goals, where now even the MD, CEO, to the MC, to the zonal executive, to the people managers, take a people and planet goal, which is 15% weightage on their goal sheet. And it's quite a huge thing because it really matters to them. If you keep a small goal, then it's not going to again meet, If it's just a tick box, it has to be meaningful.
Yes.
So leadership. Second, sensitize. If you're going to be bringing people in, they need to be aware about the sensitivity of another person. And this can go on for any DEI activity, okay? If a person is culturally moving somewhere else, there you need to do sensitization. LGBTQ you need to do, PWD you need to do. Lastly, representation. If you have to start hiring, if you're not going to be hiring, then it's meaningless doing the other top 2 fields. So you need to have representation, you need to do sensitization, and it has to come from the top. And the rest you can figure out, or you can, there's a lot.
Or we'll ask you after this.
Yes.
Great, let's...
Is there anything left? Okay.
We're leaving the last 30 minutes for you. Actually, we're extending this panel. Is that okay, everybody?
But I'll give the back. I'll give the mic.
As long as you want. We owe you a few extra minutes.
No, I will only say one thing. I think in a manufacturing setup, we have two types of people. We have one set of...
Do all of this extremely respectfully because of the fact that you don't want to give in to the fact that this is an activism of politicizing things, right? So I think being respectful in that conversation is extremely critical. And I think at the last layer that I will wrap on is something that I'm going to steal from what Deep said, right? I think they said, her father's journey is his journey. And so it's not your role to constantly get people to believe in your opinions and to get people to be converted. Our job is to ensure that we can have a very respectful, humbling conversation, share resources, share information, but everybody's journey is going to be different and you're going to have to let them be in that journey. So don't feel that just because I spoke to you for 20 minutes, now you should be an ally and you should get converted. So let them be on their journey, but yeah, just be prepared and be respectful in that conversation.
Super, thank you.
Being a founding member of Swikar and as an administrator, all the Google Forms comes to me when parent joined the group. So that means I speak to all the parents. So for example, Zahara, I think in our group, first she came out to me as she herself as a bisexual, but till the time she never actually told the group. She wrote on the group. I did not tell anyone about this. And there are some more parents, they themselves also identify as queer. It never comes out from me, So true allies, when we say, we shouldn't be, and even otherwise, it's not only as an ally, about our group also. It's a highly confidential group. Whatever is happening in our group, about her, I will not speak to with others, She can tell, It's like that. We don't gossip about each other, So that's important,
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, both Zahara and Aruna. Thank you for that. We'll stay with the workplace. Vaishali, this is for you. What practical steps can organizations take to create an inclusive environment? Sorry, I did that. Did I do that? Yes. Sorry, I'm just getting carried away with the conversation. Okay, let's talk about inclusive environment at workplace. What steps organizations can take to create this inclusive environment, and how can workplace policies be adapted towards this goal?
Sure, yeah. So a lot of things have been covered, but one of the things that really worked for us is we have a platform for learning called Trailhead. It's an on-demand asynchronous learning platform. And recently we published a module on the LGBT community, the identities, the law, and we did that because like Aruna mentioned, she Googled what gay is and she spent 15 days reading about it. Not all parents are going to be that patient. And also there is so much misinformation out there. There is so much of hate out there. I wouldn't want my parent or anyone in my family Googling what is gay anymore. The internet is not what it used to be. We are all in echo chambers. And based on what we already follow, we might get different results when we search these terms. So we wanted a place where people can be informed about it in the most queer affirmative and with the utmost care. So that's why we launched this module, and we also are planning sensitization, online sensitization sessions that happen in person, online, and those also happen periodically. So anybody who's curious, anybody whose friend or family member is going through this journey can just drop in and learn about all these terms.
So this is open to employees plus their
It's just open to employees for now.
Okay,
yeah.
and then via the
Yeah,
direct
we're
to
trying to
families.
figure out how
Wonderful.
to get
Yeah.
that open. And some other policies are, just increasing hiring and visibility. I think Zara mentioned this. We want our parents, because our parents just want us to have a good life, be successful in whatever we want to do. So they need to see people in positions of power who are queer. They need to see people just doing whatever they're doing without, their careers being affected by their identity. And that's why hiring and visibility is so important, because if my mother had seen somebody in her office being openly queer and doing well, that would have made a lot of difference for sure. And another thing is about mental health again. Like, I think looking back, like if I could have gone to like a family therapy session with my parents, had that safe environment with a queer affirmative therapist to talk it out, that's what I was missing. And if that had been free, provided under the medical insurance that we get from our corporate companies, that would have, made it so easy to say, okay, it's free, let's go. What's the worst that can happen, right? Let's go talk for an hour and see where we land. So that safe space doesn't get created on its own. It's a highly curated space that you can't advocate for yourself while keeping the space safe. You need a third person, and usually a therapist is the most qualified person to do that. So that is something that, is super useful. And again, like how in my previous organization, there was so much misogyny, and that, again, we want to avoid. Like, we want to create an inclusive environment with zero tolerance for any kind of hate. And one kind of hate makes everyone feel unsafe. We are all part of some community or the other that's marginalized, and it just makes everyone feel unsafe, and it's just not going to create a team environment where everyone wants to collaborate and bring themselves to work. So it makes such a big difference.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thanks for bringing up the fact that there is so much hateful information that you wouldn't ever want your parents to read any of that, so to direct them to the right sources. So thanks for listing out all of that. We're almost at time.